The Masque of the Red Death is a 1964 gothic horror film that stars Vincent Price. So, it's based off of actually two Edgar Allan Poe stories, but of course the first is the eponymous one, The Masque of the Red Death, but also another story is incorporated into it which is called Hop Toad. But both are actually perfectly well done and put together for this film. And I'll touch on that later. But really quickly, the character Hop Toad and his dancer girlfriend Esmeralda are included into the story of the Red Death, and you wouldn't even notice that they're actually from two different stories. So to me, this movie is a perfect gothic horror film, and it captivated me from the start. Once again, another Vincent Price movie that just gets my interest. He proved himself to be, once again, a superb gothic icon that was destined, I believe he was destined to portray Edgar Allan Poe's works. He just worked so seamlessly into it. He was perfect. The two go hand in hand. Edgar Allan Poe and Vincent Price are perfect. So, the premise to the movie, though, is that a Red Death prophecy is about to come true in some way, and Prince Prospero's reign of terror is to come to an end. The Red Death is a plague that isn't fully explained, not in the movie, but Prospero seems to be aware of the prophecy. He comes to the village and takes a girl named Francesca to his castle. He orders her boyfriend and her father to be sent to his dungeon. Prospero, who's of course played by Vincent Price, is the villain to the movie. But in the movie, at least, his character seems to be a little bit different from the story, where apparently, and I've yet to read the story while recording this, but in the story, he doesn't worship Satan, if I read that correctly, but in the movie, he does. So, for the movie, his character is kind of like an atheist that seems to believe that God is dead, and in his place, he worships Satan. So Francesca is a Christian, and she doesn't believe in his type of worship and won't convert. But strangely enough, Prospero doesn't kill her. He actually seems to believe that he can convert her. And either way, he keeps her at his castle to actually protect her, strangely enough, also, from the Red Death plague that is afflicting the village. I don't want to spoil the whole film because I think it's really good. And if I didn't mention it before, I watched it on YouTube for free, actually. But in case someone hasn't watched it, I thought that the plot was really well paced and the big reveal near the end was really, really nice. I found that the incorporation of the story Hop Toad was really smart in comparison to the evil things Prince Prospero would do to humiliate people, and it fit really well with the medieval setting that the movie already had. While watching, I could see how this movie actually might have inspired Anton LaVey from the main plot points about Satan and the devil worship they were doing there, and Prince Prospero's dialogues about God and him being dead. On top of that, there were also trapezoids on the door to Francesca's room. And I just thought to myself, there's no way that Anton LaVey didn't watch this movie. But there was something very fascinating to me about the amount of candles that were used in the film, and I think that the colors used on the set were just so incredibly eye-catching, and maybe that's why I noticed the candles, because there would be green ones and blue ones especially, and I don't know why those stood out to me, but they did. But the sets were very detailed and ornate, and to me, it looked like a real castle. Like, they fooled me. It looked real, I tried to find any information I could about exactly where they filmed. They filmed in the UK, but it seems that everything was either borrowed from an old movie set or was likely created for the film, which of course is still an amazing feat in itself. And you could tell that obviously parts were just like dummy, hollow facades, because I do remember in particular when the character Gino is trying to climb the castle wall, you could see part of the wall sort of like jiggling or, shaking a little bit, which you could tell like obviously the other side must have just been nothing. But I did find it funny, in a way, how the character Juliana burned an inverted cross into her breast as like a symbol of Satan. And I didn't realize that this was actually an idea in movies even back then. To me, I thought this was just something like that popped up from the, satanic panic from the 80s. But even in 1964, people erroneously believed that an inverted cross was satanic and evil, or at least they would use that in movies, right? But of course, this is actually just St. Peter's cross, not like devil worship. So her death was really ironic on top of that. Don't really want to spoil it, why it's ironic, but I will say that Juliana's demise was very clever and that she got what she wanted, to put it that way. When she asked for a sign, she got one, right? So I looked through the newspaper archives for this film, didn't really see much about it at all, very surprisingly. I couldn't find any reviews about the movie from 1964, but maybe that's because it was potentially more popular in the UK. And as of right now, the newspaper archives is mostly based about US newspapers. So maybe that's why. But of course, there were ads for the film, and I'll show a clip, on screen, where typically the Masque of the Red Death was advertised with Boris Karloff's movie Black Sabbath. The movie seems to have inspired music in some ways. For example, there's this band called And Darkness and Decay. The line from Edgar Allan Poe's story is shown on screen, where he wrote, "And darkness and decay, and the Red Death held illimitable dominion over all," which, is at the end of the story, as of course the movie. So, the band And Darkness and Decay has a song called Scarlet Horror, which seems to be about the film, judging from the lyrics, though the story might have influenced it too. And Darkness and Decay, it mean the band and the song. The band is inspired by the movie and they have a song inspired about it too. So I thought that was really interesting. I wasn't expecting to come across this. The whole reason I even watched this film was because I was thinking about Vincent Price movies, and randomly I just kept thinking, for some reason I kept mixing up Madhouse and The Masque of the Red Death. I kept wanting to say Madhouse. Every time I wanted to say Madhouse, I kept saying Masque of Red Death. And I was like, I haven't seen that one yet. So I decided to watch it. I actually hadn't watched either, and then now I'm doing this. But anyway, another example of this movie inspiring music, at least in some way, is actually with the band Bell Witch, where they have a song called Beneath the Mask. And all they really do is they play a couple of riffs, and a clip from the movie is played in the song. But overall, I seriously really loved this film. I really did. Like, this is one of those movies where you're like, I could see them remaking it and trying to make it more creepy, but I feel like it wouldn't have the same effect. This is one of those movies where you're like, the original is still perfect in its own way. And much of that really is because of how Vincent Price was. He played Prince Prospero in such a good way where he's evil, but in the just cruelest way. So cruel, but strangely also like a gentleman. But that's typical, of Price's characters. So I gave this a 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd, and I highly recommend this. As of right now, it's still available for free to watch on YouTube, so try it.